All right, and we are live on YouTube and Facebook, but I am going to bring in our Falcons Facebook account. It is called All Falcons Fans on All Falcons, Atlanta Falcons Fans on All Falcons. You know, nobody searches for All Falcons, they search for Atlanta Falcons. So always name it by there. And I want to say we are live. Let me type that into the chat. We just started. And
Boom.
welcome in, everybody. This is Forging the Falcons on our Wednesday typical time slot, just a couple minutes late, 9:05. We started talking exercise and food, which we should probably turn that into a separate podcast as well, with the super hiker here. And we can get into it another time. I've got a crazy streak going with steps and calories burned. Shout out to Fitbit. But right now, we've said this before, Nick, especially when we're only coming on once a week. The dog days are flying by. You know, rookies reported to the Atlanta Falcons. They reported to Flowery Branch yesterday. Eddie Goldman bails on the Atlanta Falcons before even taking a snap. Marcus Mariota is pegged on Good Morning Football as a comeback player of the year favorite, not just candidate, but a favorite. And finally, Bleacher Report did an over-under that set a very low bar, and then they predicted the Falcons would fly under it. So several things to get into, but before we get started, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing pretty well. Like I was telling you earlier, planning out it's a day hike on the east side of Rainier, about 20 miles, 5,000 feet of elevation gain with a buddy of mine that we have to park a car at two different spots in the park to get it done. But really excited. Also, the area apparently has one of the best views that a toilet has in the entire world. So maybe check that out. No, other than that, doing well. House is coming together. Excited. Maybe gonna go do a hike this week on Friday or Saturday night at a lake called Summit Lake, which is perfect because my dog's name is Summit. So got to get a picture there, of course, to prove that he's been there.
I need to come over there and go on one of these hikes with you. I'd enjoy something like that. My idea of exercise, or not exercise, but like vacation, is complete exhaustion.
Yes. Yep,
you know, it's like I want to go skiing. I want to do something. You know, I want to do something active. I don't want to just let's go to this place and we can have all these great places to go eat. Yeah, I mean, as Jeremy knows here, who says good morning. You know, he says, I've actually been thinking about this since you said it last week. He says, Jeremy said, Scott eats like a college student. Except I started thinking about that. I'm like, it's true, except for the fast food. I'm too lazy to actually go out and get something from the fast food. I don't care enough about the difference in food. So I don't actually eat fast food. And being a vegetarian, about the only thing that I eat fast food wise is Chipotle. It's the only thing that fast food that comes up with enough food to actually fill me up. But let's get into it here.
Yes, sir.
Let's start off with the bad first, I guess, and kind of get that out of the way. And our Facebook crew is a little bit slower coming in, but you know, when you are hit those likes and shares, I think Facebook's having a little bit trouble going with the notifications, and I've noticed that on a couple of our channels that the Facebook crowd has been late arriving. But we've got a really good Facebook crew on that come in and join us. So say hello when you do. But kind of want to get the bad news out of the first. So we talked about last week that Eddie Goldman theoretically filled a big hole on the defensive line. A true pro, a real professional there, veteran, where they were just filling it with stopgap measures. Tyler Davison was there a little bit. Mike Purcell was there, because I always say, wait, I see the problem with the Broncos. It's Pennell and Purcell, and I get them confused constantly.
Broncos have Purcell.
The Broncos have Purcell. Mike Pennell, and they're both just kind of meh. So I got a couple of meh defense nose guards. And so Mike Pennell, and then Anthony Rush came in, was pulled off a practice squad, and he was okay, but not good. Eddie Goldman was going to be, at worst, average in theory. However, Eddie Goldman only played, and he started 10 games, only didn't play in all of them last year. And if you look at his stats and his trajectory on his pages and everything, he's kind of on the downward slope. So, maybe he's had enough. He said, my body, I've had enough of this. Or, there's plenty of jokes out there about, wanting to play for the Falcons and, one day in that Georgia heat. But, he's from Florida. Eddie Goldman's from Florida. I followed him when he was in high school. He's used to heat and humidity, and not just Florida, like Central Florida. I think he's like near Lake City or something.
It's Florida State is what I remember watching.
Yeah, he went to Florida State, but I think he was out of Lake City, which is just north of Gainesville. You go down there, and then hang a left to get to Jacksonville on I-10, or you hang a right and drive for 3 days to get to Santa Monica. It's a long highway. Ask me how I know. But there's no really good way to spin Eddie Goldman not playing for you. I mean, it hurts your defense, at least on paper. And, you know, if you're a rival fan, I mean, it's just a ha-ha moment. You know, these guys would rather quit playing than play for your organization. It's just, someone said, don't you think a gut punch is a little over dramatic? I'm like, no, there's no positive way to spin this.
I might have a positive way now. Granted, I have been watching Ted Lasso for the first time, so I'm very much on the positive, believe and believe kind of train right now. But if he didn't have his heart in it, if he didn't feel 100%, and rather than just being there and collecting a paycheck, saying, you know what, I'm not a positive plus for this team, I'm going to take my services elsewhere, and thank you very much for the opportunity, but this is what's best for me. It's probably best for the team as well. So that's the positive spin I can give you. Obviously,
all right, now I'm going to smack that one down, okay? Because you just lobbed that one up like a soft pitch, and I'm gonna wind up and I'm gonna home run derby this thing. Then he shouldn't have been signed.
Yeah, no,
he shouldn't have been signed. That points to a failure in the pre-process that gives him a 7-figure contract. Because at worst, he's making $1 million. You know, at worst, he's probably 2.5, 3, somewhere in that neighborhood, and you don't have to pay that, so it's low risk.
Yeah.
But that due diligence needs to be done before you stop dropping 7 figures on a guy that you want to plug into a starting lineup of an NFL franchise. That is a failure. And
he might not,
but maybe they said that going in.
Yeah.
Maybe they said that going in. Okay.
Yeah.
To steel man your argument.
Yeah.
Listen, give it a shot. No guaranteed money. If you don't want to do it, come back. Well, then they shouldn't have signed him. They shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they shouldn't have signed him.
Yeah. They signed him late in the process. Already in our brain when we were kind of going over this roster, they had question marks on the interior defensive line. Yes, it makes it a much weaker spot once again, but you mentioned it too. His play was going downhill quickly. What was he, like a 330-pound nose tackle? Those guys, those joints can go pretty quickly as well. Maybe instead of paying him that money, he would have not been available this year. You would have been paying him, and now you would have had less money to roll over for next season. So
no, I'm glad that if he decided he wanted to decided that he didn't want to play, that that he didn't just collect a check. Good for him. Yeah. But again, there's not a lot of good ways to spin this one for sure.
No.
Back to the drawing board. A name I've been reading a lot is Linval Joseph. As a guy that could come in. Danny Shelton as an available big-bodied run stopper. And then one of our big contributors, one of our big guys, Ethan, comes in and says, "Good afternoon, gents and Falcons country." I don't think we have maybe Falcons Nation anything, but we don't have the God, don't say Broncos Nation. It's Broncos country. We don't have that down here. We're a little bit more forgiving in the South. Hey, if you're polite, we're polite. We're not going to say we don't have the anything like that. And Pete coming in, nice bike, Pete, nice bike. With a sticker, I would imagine it doesn't quite show in, but you show in, and we want to say hello to Pete. So now let's pivot off of Eddie Goldman and let's get to a positive. And that's Jeremy coming in and saying, if Mariota plays well, that throws a wrench in the Falcons' plan of drafting high. Maybe and possibly. And if you ask them, they won't ever admit to that's their plan. No one ever says, yeah, we're looking for the top draft. That's what's so funny about the Miami Dolphins thing to me. It's like, it's okay to tank. Just don't admit it. Yeah. Everybody knows what you're doing. Yeah, we're going to bench these guys. We're going to play our rookies. We want to develop them. We want to see what we've got for next year. You're tanking. It's okay. We get it. The league incentivizes losing. We shouldn't be surprised when you lose. When you are incentivized to lose.
An example of that, 2 years ago, the Eagles, Week 17, were winning a game. I think the last game of the season, it was a 16-game season then. And they pulled their quarterback, played a bunch of rookies, and ended up losing that game. And instead of picking, I think it would have been 12 or 14, they moved all the way up to some above the Broncos, like 8 or 7, and ended up taking Devonta Smith. So after trading with the Cowboys, I think that's how it worked down. It's 2 years ago now.
Because that draft class had a lot of movement.
Yes.
But they did pick 10th. They may have stayed put. So it was really, was it Philly and Miami that were working a deal? They ended up working the deal because I felt like Philly was 6, and they ended up trading back because Miami traded out of the 3 spot and then traded back up.
Yes. 100%.
And they ended up getting into and it ended up getting that because it was like, okay, Miami, you just had a haul, but then you overtraded to get back into 6, and you still didn't get your guy. Yeah, because they really wanted Jamar Chase.
Yep, that's what it was. You're 100% correct, because the Eagles then, because of that loss, ended up getting an extra first-round pick. And that, I mean, they would have been picking 11 or 12, and they ended up picking 6. And I remember being bummed because that meant the Broncos picked 9 instead of 8. You know, when the Broncos were bad, you're cheering for everybody around them to win, so you move up one slot.
That was we talked about this, I think, on another show. It's like, that was a tough. If you were picking in the top 15, it would have been tough to screw that one up. You know, at the worst, you're coming away with the hope of a franchise quarterback. Now, you might miss on one of those guys, Trey Lance or Zach Wilson, but you're excited about it. You see the tools there, Justin Fields, and they still might hit. You still have the hope of those guys. But James Palmer of Good Morning Football sounded like he was talking to some folks down in Atlanta, and repeated a lot of the stuff that we've been saying. Not that he's listening to me say it, but that Arthur Smith did a really good job. It's not brain surgery. The Falcons overachieved last year to win 7 games. They did a really good job. And Marcus Mariota is bringing some things to the table that they weren't able to do with Matt Ryan from the running game option. And they showed the same play of him, you know, running an option and outrunning the defense as the Raiders. You know, the Raiders quarterback is one of the things that you'll never see, you know, Matt Ryan do. That's okay. But, you know, the passing game, can you scheme enough easy passes to make up for his deficiencies as a passer to try and become better at the quarterback position than you had with Matt Ryan last year? Is that it's possible, obviously. Is it probable, or is it even?
I would say that I would say that you're not. It's going to probably similar end result as Matt Ryan, if not slightly worse. But it's just different means of getting there. Matt Ryan is super, super pocket dependent at this stage in his career. He always has been, but definitely now. And the Falcons had arguably the worst left guard and worst right tackle play in the entire NFL last year. So that really hurts your ability to work with a Matt Ryan. A way to get away with that is to have so many options that he's able to use his brain and quick pass his way away around that offensive line issue. Kind of like, not that the Buccaneers line is bad, but because Tom Brady with Tampa Bay had 4 or 5 options deep that were all quality, he could play, you know, pick your matchup pre-snap and win a lot of those. And you couldn't do that with Matt Ryan as well. So now you have a quarterback who's obviously much more mobile. I think a better overall scheme fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do, and should help the offensive line alleviate some of that edge rush, because the edge rushers have to play more disciplined rather than just crashing in. You have to always watch, play a little bit contained when you're rushing the passer with Mariota, which should help the offensive line. That said, how is the offensive line going to be better? There's obviously not a big addition on that unit. You're hoping that you have development from the left guard spot, the center spot. Nobody gets hurt, knock on wood. And you did lose a weapon in was Russell Gage is the name, right? That's all of a sudden escaped me. Went to Tampa Bay. You added Drake London, but he's a rookie. So I think it's going to probably be a similar result because how the offense was set up last year, I don't think was great for Matt Ryan's abilities. But I think Matt Ryan is a better quarterback in a vacuum. So probably similar end result. Mariota also, I just, you know, they're hyping him up being a potential comeback player of the year. I think some of this is also Mariota good guy hype. Everywhere that he's gone, people have praised what a professional, what a good person, what a, you know, just outgoing, good teammate, that not outgoing, but just a good teammate that Mariota is. And rightfully so. He's been, you know, stuck behind Derek Carr, who's a top 10, top 12 quarterback for a bit. And now has a chance to shine again. And I think he does deserve, you know, hey, remember this guy? He was pretty good at Oregon, had a good time at Tennessee there for a bit before a better scheme fit with Ryan Tannehill was there. Maybe Mariota is somebody you want.
Yeah, his 2016 season, which ironically was Matt Ryan's MVP season, if you could get that out of him, but unfortunately, if you look at his numbers, those appear to be the anomaly. He was almost 3,500 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Every year, his other years as a starter, he was 19-10 as a rookie. Okay, he's a rookie. I get it. But then he regressed. That was the one that hurts. You go to 2017, and it's 13 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. And then in 2018, as a 25-year-old, he's 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And then in 6 starts, he got off to a decent start with 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But they're 2 and 4, and then Tannehill comes in and takes that job and doesn't let it go. So can you expect him, can he be adequate? Yeah, he can. He can be serviceable. Is he your long-term option? And as Jeremy said, if Mariota plays well, it throws into a wrench in the Falcons' plan of drafting high. He can play well, and they can still draft high. Matt Ryan played well last year, all things considered. Mm-hmm. And again, they were 7-10 and 7-2 in one-score games. And you kind of forget about it, except for the fact that I probably bring it up a lot. But just let me bring up the numbers here. The Atlanta Falcons ref and how they regressed in most of your key metrics in points scored. Okay, they were 4-12 in 2020. So we're not talking about a juggernaut team. We're not talking about the 2010 Atlanta Falcons who were 13-3 or the 12 Falcons who were 13-3 regressing to 4-12. We're talking about a 4-12 team. They were 16th in points scored. They went to 26th. They were 18th in offensive yards. They went to 29th. They were 19th in points given up. They went to 29th. They were 13th in turnover ratio. They went to 25th. They were 18th in point differential. They went to 28th. And they almost doubled their win total. All of these things point to you got worse, but they almost doubled their win total. And a lot of that had to do with, I think the overall coaching was better. The guys played harder. They had more belief at the time. The schedule was pretty freaking easy. It ended up being, if not the easiest, this one of the top 2 in the NFL for strength of schedule. Cordero Patterson came in and was awesome. Kyle Pitts lived up to a billing. You had a veteran quarterback and a good kicker and a kick-ass cornerback. So you kind of smoke and mirrored your ways into 7 wins. So you could still have good individual performances and still regress from a record standpoint. But again, I agree. And if they're losing and Mariota's playing okay, he's playing well, okay. At what point do you think about throwing Desmond Ridder in there?
I mean, if you that's partially how much they feel comfortable with what he's processing the offense. I mean, Desmond Ridder has played for a good amount of time. He's seen a lot, and he does have the legs to kind of give him a get out of jail card free early. But the question is, what are your goals this season as well? Do you feel like he's ready for it? But also, what are your goals? If you're sitting there, meandering at, let's say, 4 or 5 wins with 5 games to go, you're out. I mean, at that point, you're out. I would probably and at that point, I don't advocate for tanking per se, but your season goals are probably more about seeing what you have on the roster and trying to evaluate, okay, are we in a spot where do we need to be aggressive to go after a quarterback this season? Do we need to do a dice roll with this quarterback? Or are we in a position where our roster is probably still in, another year away? We can bide our time. We're not in a position to go up and get Bryce Young / CJ Stroud. We don't really like Will Levis or Tyler Van Dyke or Anthony Richardson. Maybe we should roll the dice with Richardson or Ridder 1 year, really get our books right because he's going to be cheaper than heck after this season as well. And, give him that Drew Lock sophomore year where if it's good, awesome. Maybe you have something there. If not, then you can choose to be aggressive with your assets, including maybe giving up extra draft capital because you'd have so much cap space to fill the roster around him.
Ridder was the final draft pick to sign, and I think he came in at 4 years, $1 million a year, somewhere right in that neighborhood. So again, super cheap, not cost prohibitive. You asked, what are your goals for this year? Realistically, I think the goals are to improve your young players, and at worst, showcase some of the guys that you might be able to move for more draft capital. You should be able to upgrade your draft pick on Desmond Ridder if he comes in and looks serviceable. If he looks like he could be a decent player, but I'm drafting top 5, I might be able to move Ridder for a 2nd round pick, and then still draft my quarterback of the future. Or I dropped my quarterback of the future, and now I've got Ridder and my two quarterbacks battling it out. Ritter's got a chance. He does. He's got some tools. Yeah, but again, most guys you take in the third round, you're not pegging as your long-term starter. If you were pegging him as your long-term starter, you would have taken him a lot earlier than third round.
Yep. And just to add to that, I think it's a lottery ticket, but you paid a scratcher level price for that, and your hit rate is probably also a scratcher level. But again, you're talking about, you see some of these backup quarterbacks making really good money with the draft capital the Falcons had, with the finances that they had. Even if he just ends up being a good backup, I think the dice roll with the possible hit rate, as long as he doesn't completely flame out, is fine, even if he just ends up being a backup quarterback. And you want to have, also to add to the backup stuff, he does sound a lot like Mariota as far as the leadership, the intangibles, the work ethic, and that's stuff that you want.
Skill set.
And a skill set, yes.
The skill set is very similar. I looked it up. I started writing up just knowing what I know of Mariota. Having watched him in high school, I didn't watch him, intently at Oregon, but I almost started writing up that Desmond Ridder was a more prolific passer at Cincinnati until I looked up Mariota's numbers. No.
Chip Kelly, baby.
No. Yeah. That spread offense that Mariota ran, he ran it absolutely perfectly with all that space in the Pac-12. Yeah. And his numbers in college, well, he won a Heisman for a reason. But let's see, his final year, he passed for 4,400 yards in 15 games. That's 300 a game, 42 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. You can be a pocket passer and get drafted high with those kind of numbers, let alone the fact that he runs like the wind. So wanted to say good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning, Luke Wright. How are you doing, my friend? Glad you're here. And Alex Juarez coming in. He says, so what do you guys record think the Cowboys are going to have? Alex, I haven't broken down too much about what the Cowboys are doing, what their schedule looks like. My question is for Cowboys is, do you think they got better? I know they kind of took it on the chin a little bit in free agency. You went from Randy Gregory to Dante Fowler at edge, didn't really bring in anybody that was overly exciting via free agency. So, what do you think? Is the team better this year? Everybody always thinks they got better, but did the Cowboys improve?
It'd be hard to say yes, because you have issues you lost Amari Cooper as well. So you lose Randy Gregory, you lose Amari Cooper. I guess the big question is, do you think Dak Prescott being another year removed from that injury helps? And do you think that Ezekiel Elliott starts to return a little bit more to form? Because while he's still the best pass protecting running back in football, I mean, he's essentially, you can consider him a plus half offensive line every single play because he is that good as a blocker. I don't think he was as good as a runner last year as Pollard. So a big question there is Michael Gallup returning healthy, and biggest one for me over here on roster wise, offensive line. The Cowboys for years had the best offensive line in football, top three offensive line. They've regressed pretty precipitously over the last couple seasons. Tyron Smith getting injured has done a lot with that, not being healthy, but that offensive line needs to return back to that top 5 form. I know they drafted Tyler Smith in the first round last year. They have Zach Martin, but the center position has been up and down since you lost Travis Frederick, and the right tackle spot. I mean, Terrence Steele, not very good. So questions there. Finally, the biggest one for me, and this is just me speaking, I think one of the few things that maybe in life that I'm like, you know what, he's speaking some truth here. Aaron Rodgers and I on this one. I don't think Mike McCarthy is a coach. I mean, he is a coach, but I don't think he's a very good coach at all. That quick pass offense is just putting up, volume attempts without really looking for kill shots, which I think you need to be hunting for those explosive plays and not really getting it from McCarthy. So I got very little respect for McCarthy as a coach. I think he's one of the worst head coaches in football right now. So the Cowboys probably they're hovering around 500 in my book.
Might be a reason Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn stuck around one more season too, right? Aren't they both still there? I don't think I know Dan Quinn hung around one more year. I don't think Kellen Moore left either. Both had chances to go some other places. 500 sounds about right. So we'll see. How much does Tyler Smith help them right away? You mentioned the offensive line. Sam Williams, if they can strike gold on guys who had questionable character problems coming out with Micah Parsons, and he had some red flags. Sam Williams with his red flags. Sam Williams is a first round talent. Yeah. So at edge. So, that could be a replacement for for Randy Gregory. Combine him and Dante Fowler. Anyway, let's get back to the Falcons here a little bit. And Dave comes in and says, "Good morning, guys." Good morning. Good morning, Dave. Hope you are doing well. So I don't think the Falcons are going to have a good enough record for Marcus Mariota to win Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I think that it takes numbers and record. You got to be hovering around 500, which at worst. And if he's doing that, if this team is 9-8 and Mariota plays 17 games, give it to him. Just go ahead and start etching the name as soon as they're sitting there at 8-8. Go ahead and etch his name in there. And Arthur Smith, Coach of the Year, as far as I'm concerned. That said, we're about halfway through the show here. It's 9:30 Eastern time. The rookies reported yesterday. Now, I think you and I were pretty bullish on the crop that General Manager Terry Fontenot was able to bring in. And we haven't talked rookies in a while. Nick, who are some of the guys that you're looking forward to seeing, at camp on the field in the 2022 season? And then, I'll kind of bounce off of you. If you want to start with one, I'll go with one.
For the Falcons? For everybody? No, yeah, for the Falcons, of course. Forging the Falcons, guys. Also, just a quick side note here, Forging the Falcons is now on iTunes. So make sure you guys are going to Apple Podcast and typing in Forging the Falcons and find us on there. Obviously, Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. for me is a little bit early to be catching the live if I wasn't out here doing the work. So I would find it on iTunes, and a lot of you guys can as well. And check us out. Also, please go there, give us a 5-star rating and review, because it's in its fledgling stage, and the more people that can get on there and review it and give us a 5-star rating, the more we can get that ball rolling. So who am I most interested in here, Scott? My answer is one that I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'm going to go away from that, because the guy who I'm most intrigued by is definitely, I think, the guy that you're going to say as well. So for me, I guess I'll just go with the easiest one off the bat, and that's Drake London. What is his usage going to be? How quickly can he acclimate into this offense? There's a lot of debate about wide receiver this year, and I think I saw a fantasy football tweeter. God, some of those guys. Here's a thread why 10 players you should avoid. I don't care. I don't really. Fantasy football's fine, but I think the stat was since 2010, every single wide receiver that had been drafted in the top 10 has had at least 725 yards or something like that. Mm-hmm. So Drake London, looking for him. What's his usage going to be? How do they try to utilize him? Is he big slot? Is he X? Does he play in line some? Do they get funky with Kyle Pitts kind of doing some inverse outside kind of stuff with both of those guys? And just how quickly he can get acclimated. So really excited about Drake London. I think he's going to be a good player for them. And again, he's got to hit. And with the wide receiver market, the way it's gone these last few years, if you can get him even on that top 10 salary, cost controlled for 5 seasons, that's a big plus.
Well, you mentioned Drake London. We talked last week that we titled the show, are these guys underrated? And, I got some pushback on social media, some of the comments about the team's not very good. I don't see it, the lines of scrimmage. I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. This is a different conversation. We're not actually disagreeing. The Falcons can still be bad, but the worst team in football had like 3,400 yards last year. It was the Saints in passing. 3,400 yards was the worst by some margin. They only had like 180 yards per game. And that's still 3,500 yards. Someone has to catch those passes. This is more about opportunity. So 900 yards, Drake London is walking in as wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 1 the minute they called his name. Kyle Pitts is target 1. Yeah. Kyle Pitts is option 1, is target 1, depending on where he lines up. But you're talking at worst, target 2. What was he? Eighth overall pick. The first wide receiver taken, huge big body that you can throw open all the time. Can get it, has a lot of experience in the slot. You can scheme him ways open. 52 yards a game is 900 yards in a 17-game season. That doesn't sound outrageous to me. And that would put him higher than where he was ranked. So yes, I think that Drake London is being underrated on fantasy boards. And I think he is someone you're obviously intrigued in. I love the big receivers. I always have, probably always will. It's my bias. Big and fast, plays in any scheme. We don't know how fast he is, but that's okay. He's big and he's fast enough, and he's going to get the opportunity to catch a lot of footballs. The guy I was going to talk about. My question is how quickly will we see him? Because there's two veterans right there. It's Troy Anderson, the linebacker. Troy Anderson was taken, let's see. He was taken pretty early, and then I clicked off of this, so I don't have it in front of me anymore. But he was third round, taken in the third round, I believe, taken ahead of guys like Chad Muma.
I think
just really good athlete. I think he was 4.49 in the 40. And I watched him at the Senior Bowl, and I thought he was the best inside linebacker there. He's bigger than Foye Oluokun, which is going to help when the Falcons were getting bullied. I mentioned the yards against, and that was yards and points against, and that was with them trying to limit possessions and try and eke out, stretch the game a little bit. So I call it suffer ball is what I call it. Like, we want to speed up the clock. We want to slow the game down and limit the possessions and see if we can keep the game close to the fourth quarter and maybe kick a Younghoe Koo field goal. That's how they won 7 games. They still ended up with metrics that were that bad and yards against. I think, despite the fact that Foye Oluokun was a $15 million a year linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he led, I know how silly this sounds, he led the NFL in tackles. I think Troy Anderson can come in and have a positive impact and actually improve the defense pretty quickly. And Rashaan Evans is going to bring some of that size and strength that the Falcons lacked in the middle of their 3-4 with Foye and Deion Jones, depending on where he's lining up, because those are both lightweights. And I don't mean that they're 220 pounds or less. They're lightweight. That I really am looking forward to seeing Troy Anderson and what he can do. Because, again, I don't care if he played at Montana State or Alabama. If you're able to win Conference Player of the Year on both sides of the ball, as a running back and as a linebacker, at the collegiate level, you're a freaking football player. You know how to play the game. You've got the instincts. And I want a guy like that in the middle of my defense.
Yeah. 100%. And just, fact checking here. I'm about Tony Reale in the background. Things you got wrong. Troy Anderson went to pick 58, so mid-late second round pick.
Okay, yeah, it was a premium pick and well worth it. I had it up when we started, and then we started talking Dallas Cowboys, and I pulled up Dallas's. So Drake London, Arnold Ebiketie, Troy Anderson, second round, and again, I think you might not like the idea of using that spot inside linebacker.
I mean, second round's, I think, okay. Like, that's the kind of like running back. It's a running back conversation as well. If you're using a first round pick, maybe that's not the best usage of the resource, but day 2, that's the sweet spot. That's where the best ones have all gone in the last
really
10 years.
I mean, he's a really, really good prospect. The Falcons have made a living down at the Senior Bowl, and they, in this case, they saw what I saw. What I didn't see, and this is where I want you to come in, because I know this is a guy you're really high on. What I didn't see it out of Arnold Ebiketie, which is a small sample size, and that's okay. So sell me on Ebiketie and why Falcons fans should be very excited about him, other than the fact that he's not Steven Means. That's reason enough to be excited, but Ebiketie's bringing a little bit more to the table than that.
Man, Ebiketie is an Energizer Bunny out there. He is a big fighter. I can't count. I should have gone through his tape and tallied it up last year, but the amount of plays where he was an edge rusher and made a tackle on the opposite hash mark, chasing a guy down, is rare to see. And that's what captain out there. There's a reason that he got number 17, which has some lore for Penn State as well, chasing guys down on the opposite end. So he's fighting. He does a lot of, if he doesn't win his first rep, he's got a pretty good bag of counters there also, which helps a lot. It's not just like stalemate and then kind of, a lot of soft hand fighting. He can be pretty violent with that. And I love his physical makeup. He's a little bit short, but he's got really long arms, which he can just forklift guys, get under them and foop under them, which is probably one of the reasons he's so easy with the counter moves, because if you're at that position already and you've stalemated, you have an advantage, not really a stalemate. So I'm excited to see him. He is not the biggest pass rusher in the world. I think he's also the most powerful guy in the world. So there is some questions about, running right at him from time to time, but I'm excited to see what he can do. And again, the game tape with him, he wrecked a lot of Big Ten opponents this year. I think he was really good in that Ohio State game as well, stood out. So, I mean, there's a reason he was a early second round pick, one of the first picks in the second round, I believe, one of the top 10 picks. He can get after it. I guess the biggest detriment that I have for Ebiketie, other than the question about the running, is he is a little bit older, coming from the likes of Temple and then transferring to Penn State. So he's going to be 23, I think, this season, which is a little bit older than you want for a rookie. But again, not to the point where he's already going to be at that hitting 30 in a couple seasons. So I'm excited about Ebiketie. I think he's going to be a very good player for them. I think probably he's going to be a solid starter. That's what his career trajectory is, which for a second round pick at edge is fine. Maybe not ever a like Pro Bowl level, but a good solid starter, which on the rookie contract is fine with me.
Out of Cameroon was where he was born, so very cool. Yeah. That's very cool. I like seeing him move. And I just got shown to 1 star. All of a sudden, my internet connection said no more. I guess gigabit speed isn't good enough. On his YouTube highlights that I posted, someone on this channel from the Senior Bowl, someone's like, he looks tiny. I'm like, well, he's 6'2.5", 250 pounds, 34 and an eighth inch arms. He's not tiny. Part of that is that number. You put the 17 on him, and all of a sudden he ends up looking smaller. But he's not tiny. He's got really good size. And you mentioned he might not be as strong against the run. But who'd we just talk about, Nick? A couple of 250-pound linebackers. They just beefed up the backside of the line, the inside linebackers, and we can make up all kinds of new names to call them what position they've been playing for 100 years.
Yeah.
But he should have some help. He should have some help from some big bodies coming in behind him, coming in beside him. Now, what hurts me a little bit on this, and I don't have too big of complaints on this, Nick. But you look at the 4 guys taken: Drake London, Arnold Ebiketie, Troy Anderson, Desmond Ridder. Ridder was the 4th one of those guys at 74. At 76, Travis Jones went. 320-pound nose guard from UConn with athleticism, strength. Love him. How much is he needed in this offense now? In this defense now. Again, I think the interior defensive line is a sore spot. Yes. And that was one thing. Well, we needed an edge. Yes, I know. We needed everything. We needed another quarterback. I know. We needed everything. But I really like Travis Jones in this spot. And where'd he end up? Baltimore, probably.
I think he did end up in Baltimore. No. Yeah, he did.
He did. He ended up in Baltimore.
I think there was an injury flag on Travis Jones. Maybe the ankle.
You'd mentioned that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We will see. Michael Ranquillo coming in on YouTube says good morning, Scott and Nick on Forging the Falcons. Good morning, Michael. Michael's coming in and joining us early. He's out of Arizona, so welcome in and good morning. So you mentioned one edge. I'm going to hit another one. D'Angelo Malone. Now, D'Angelo Malone may forever live in lore for me as the guy that I was calling the Bears took the kid out of the University of Miami, and I'm sitting here on a Bears podcast showing D'Angelo Malone video and saying what a great pickup he is, and totally screwed it up because I had D'Angelo Malone in my head. That said, I really like D'Angelo Malone. So let me see if I can bring up his
Doug Malone, right?
It's D'Angelo.
D'Angelo.
Yeah, you've been calling him Doug, but it is D'Angelo.
Okay.
And if he goes by, he might be Nick a nickname Doug. I just never correct.
I think I have
coming off the edge, number 10. I just love, the term for that is, twitch. I've always called it bounce. Some of these guys look like they're playing on rubberized tracks, and they just have a different movement to them and just a quickness of feet. You call them all twitched up. That's D'Angelo Malone. Yeah. And I'm a big fan. And they got him, let's see, a third round still. So, but 82 overall, steal. So yeah. I'm a big fan of here. The two, I liked him better out of what I saw. Again, small sample size. But in this small sample size environment, I like Malone better than Ebiketie. So reminds me a little bit of going in the way back machine back to 88 when the Falcons took Andre Bruce and Marcus Cotton. Marcus got the same position, and Marcus Cotton says the only place he's got me beat is in paycheck because Andre Bruce went number 1 overall. Well, it could end up being like that for Ebiketie too. So plenty to look forward to. And then again, you might want to talk a little bit about Tyler Algier.
Yeah, Tyler Algier, I think he is the positive end of Royce Freeman, if a lot of people remember that, where he actually plays to his size. He doesn't try to bounce everything outside. My biggest concern with Tyler Algier is I don't think he is the most springy athlete. So he probably there's a little bit of build-up speed to some of his work, and it has me questioning his ability in more of a shotgun offense, as well as with the offensive line that has a little bit porous. But he was, I think, number 2 last year in yards after contact and way up there in yards after contact per attempt. So he's somebody that if you have light boxes against you, he's going to cause issues for, the limited linebackers or defensive linemen up there. So I can't remember. He was very high in the broken tackles and whatnot. Now, I know he wasn't playing, a SEC schedule, but also that BYU offensive line took a step back from 2021 to 2020. The 2020 to the 2021 season as well. So like Tyler Algier, I think he's a fun complement with Cordell Patterson there in the backfield. And he's got that thing going for him that everybody wants. Fresh rookie legs.
And 6th-round pick offensive lineman Justin Schaefer could come in and compete for a starting guard position. I don't want my 6th-round pick coming in and competing for a starting guard position. But again, Jalen Mayfield, and I'll qualify this every time, through no fault of his own, because he wasn't ready. He was forced into action in a position he'd never played before at the collegiate or NFL level. At guard, was the worst pass blocking guard in the NFL according to PFF. Not guard, player. Worst pass blocking offensive lineman in the NFL. So Schaefer coming in from Georgia could help push him right away. And even if, again, always get better. That's all I'm asking. That's all I ask my teams. As a lifelong Atlanta sports fan, I'm not expecting championships every year. But improve. What can you do to get better? If you're getting better, then you're headed in the right direction. The left guard position should get better, period. Just like edge. Edge should get better, period, because it really can't get worse. Mayfield will either improve a little bit or a lot, but he should improve from 1 year to 2, or he gets beat out by somebody who's better than him. Both of those are good factors for the Falcons. And Schaefer could be that guy.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good call on that one. See how it turns out. We pretty much went through the whole rookie class besides the tight end Fitzgerald.
There's a lot of opportunity, though.
There really is.
There's good players. It was a deep class, and there's a lot of opportunity. And Rob Bucksbaum coming in said, "Good morning, gents." Catching a few minutes late this morning. Well, we're glad you're here, Rob. And EJ coming in says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick. Please pardon my tardiness." For sure, always. You are excused. You are excused. So,
don't put words in my mouth.
Last thing I wanted to hit on is Bleacher Report did an article. I posted it with my thoughts, and I'll hit it here a little bit on allfalcons.com of an over-under for win totals, and they ended up taking the under. They set the over-under, and then they said, what should you take? And they set it at 5. Again, there's a lot of Falcons fans out there that think that's crazy. This should be at worst a 500 team. But there isn't anybody in media who agrees with Falcons fans right now. We'll show them, okay, well, we will, but, don't, I've said it before, and I'll only say it one time today, is if you are 3-14, 2-15, don't take it out on Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith can coach football, okay? Don't have unrealistic expectations and then say, blame your coaching staff for failing to live up to them. This is a roster playing without $60 million. With 33% of its salary cap is going to other teams. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Next year, the rebuild can begin in earnest. But do you remember we broke down the list of we broke down the roster? Do you remember your win total?
I think I had him at 5. I think it was 5.
You had him at 5. I think I had him at 2-15. It may have been 3-14. It may have been 3, but I'm looking at the roster. Now, Cleveland is a wild card. Cleveland's a wild card. I think that's a home game. But all of a sudden, one of those wins was the Panthers. They just improved a quarterback. Baker Mayfield, for whatever you think of him, is a significant improvement over Sam Darnold. Yeah. Significant. improvement. They just got better, and they beat the brakes off the Falcons in one of the games, and then they split the two of them. They split them again. So I had it counted as a split. It's going to be tough to get a split. And the other one, I got the Bears at home. After that, the Falcons could be dogs in every single game, every single one of them. Will they get one of those and pull out a win where you don't think they should? You'll probably, but I think 4-13, 3-14 is pretty realistic. I think it's a whole lot more realistic than 9-8.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's not to beat a dead horse per se, but it's one of those things where sometimes they are fans. It's not really realistic to always ask them to be, the putting their head in the sand and not being hopeful. Although maybe Falcons fans a little bit different than Broncos fans, as you like to say, given their
I call it age check. I'm like, oh, you still have optimism. You must be under 30.
Yeah.
Or then they complain about Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank's the worst owner in sports. I'm like, yeah, you didn't ever have the Smiths, did you? You're under 35 years old, and Arthur Blank's all you know. And everybody complains about their owner. Yeah. Arthur Blank is a dream compared to Rankin Smith Jr. and Sr. A dream. You have no idea how bad it was.
Can't speak. Denver's had pretty good ownership until recently, and we'll see how the Waltons do. And real quick, I see Ethan's in here with a super, but I want to say, Ethan, I hope you are doing okay. I don't know. Obviously I'm not there, and sometimes media portrays things reactionary versus the reality of things, but I saw a bunch of fires in London and whatnot from the heat wave, and the hottest 3-day stretch in the history of London. Chaos. A bunch of people have died from heat exhaustion in Spain and Portugal. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, every day, tired of living through unprecedented times, but I hope you're doing well, Ethan. And the fact that you're even here joining us makes me happy, because I've been thinking about you, hoping that you're safe. So he says, do we have a sponsor today? Great show, gents. Take care, everyone. You take care, Ethan. And thank you for the 25 pounds over on your side of the pond.
Yep. I'm looking forward to coming to see you. I haven't booked it yet, but I'm still planning on coming, and I'll get there this year. At the very least, it'll be at the end of the year with the birthday coming up. I got a January 3rd. So that Christmas, the festive fixtures, that might be my birthday this year. We'll come see you this year for sure. But that is going to do it for us. So I want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor, Ethan, the DWI guys. If you happen to be in London and find yourself needing some legal help, give Ethan a call, the DWI guys. Find them pretty easy to find. But a quick shout out to Ryann Kennedy Homes, who, if not a direct sponsor, is definitely an indirect sponsor, because she helps pay for this show and all of the different things that we're able to do here. Yes, that is my wife. I may be biased. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. She is a fantastic resource in the North Metro Atlanta area for finding or selling your home. Check it out, Ryann Kennedy Homes. You can hit her website and go search. I used to do that. I used to call it middle-aged porn. I'd go into Austin and look and see what was available. I'm like, Austin's a cool town. What else is there? Just go and take a look at some of the different things. And if you need anything, want to sell your home, upgrade, anything like that, check out Ryann Kennedy Homes. On that note, we are going to get out of here, and we're going to head over to Beckoning the Broncos on Mile High Huddle. She's got Albert Knoppers as a special guest today.
Cool.
And things are heating up in Falcons country and down here. As the rookies report, guys are coming to camp. Football's here. It's end of July. Football is here. And we are glad you are here with us. And as always, thanks for being here. And for Nick, I'm Scott. We will see you next time.